Hey, tribe. We're here again today for a double whammy on the Empowerment Bookstore. Now, I'm always excited to give you a new book, and today you've seen this brother many, many times. Minister Zumbi, the founder of Liberty Hall Media Group and author of G.O.A.T, aka Gospel of Afronomics Theology, is here to empower and uplift you on today's episode of the Empowerment Bookstore. A little bit of background. Brother Minister Zumbi has dedicated his life to spreading the word of empowerment, financial responsibility, and personal transformation. With a wealth of knowledge and experience as a business, economic, and financial thought leader, he believes that true empowerment starts with equipping individuals with the right tools, value systems, and mindset to solve their financial problems. As an Afronomicist and an Afrofuturist, Brother Minister addresses the economic issues faced by urban hip hop and African world communities from an empowerment to sovereignty perspective. So let's bring him on, the one and only Brother Zumbi. Today, brother,
Greetings.
greetings. So tell me, what inspired you to pen this book?
I'll take it back to a lecture that Malcolm gave called "The Ballad of the Bullet," and okay, and in that lecture, he talked about the need for what's called a self-help philosophy, and that self-help philosophy became the gospel of Black nationalism, where it simply means to own and control the social, political, economic, and cultural aspects of your community. So, what I did was take my 23 plus years of research and experience in business and put it into a philosophy that is African centered. All right. So, from there, I said there has to be an economic philosophy that's rooted in a nucleus of culture, history, and spirituality.
What you got going over there, brother, that you looking at?
Uh, I'm getting a little I'm getting a little feedback, so it's like I'm hearing.
Multiple things at once.
Yes.
Let's check with the audience. Hey, those that are watching live, do you hear any feedback? I'm good on my end, sir. Let me know if we need to drop you out and come right back.
Okay. Okay. Can okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Must be the bookie man. But anyway, so so as I was saying, the philosophy It had to be rooted in a nucleus of culture, history, and spirituality. I think one of the, at least what I found, is one of the mistakes that we made is that we've separated culture from economics. And when you do that, it's like, that's like me handing you anywhere from 10 to $100 million, but yet you have no cultural, historical, or spiritual foundation to know how to maximize those resources. And I think we've seen plenty of cases where uh, numerous members of the African rural community have gotten these resources, but have squandered them because they had no philosophical framework, no cultural framework in order to maximize and aggregate those to work to our advantage.
Okay, that's interesting. Well,
Mm.
can you tell us more about how your journey, well, your specific journey, and how you became so passionate about empowering individuals in the community, especially through entrepreneurship and economics?
Uh, I would say this particular journey kind of started in 1998 when I said, okay, how do I basically make money? Okay. And still coming out of the 90s, that whole, I guess you would call it that whole Afrocentric renaissance. What I've noticed is the whole quote unquote poor righteous teacher mentality. And you really saw this during the 90s when people were still, doing VHS, later into DVD. A lot of bootlegging was going on, whether you were in 125th Street in Harlem or other urban areas around the country, where a lot of the scholars who use these vehicles to feed themselves and feed their families were being undercutted. Okay. And I saw the effects of that type of parasitical behavior when it came to our scholars. And so I said, how do we create an economic system to where they could flourish? For those of you who may have already picked up the book, the dedication goes to who I call my ancestral teacher, Brother Steve Coakley. And I guess I can share this particular story. The last time I saw him was, I want to say maybe February 2003. And it was a situation where he was scrambling to relocate from the DC area to the Bay Area, particularly Oakland, Sacramento, etc. And we saw him at the National Black Theater on 125th and 7th Ave. And I remember I wanted to get a few tapes from him. And he said, man, I'm really trying to, scrape up enough money so I can relocate. And I can't remember how much money I had in my wallet. I said, I'll tell you what. And I was in college at the time. I said, look here, I'm going to put everything I got on the table and I'm going to turn around. I said, don't worry about me. I said, take what you need to help you get where you need to go. And so maybe I had a few $100s. So I put it down and I turned my back. And maybe about 15, 30 seconds, he says, okay, I'm done. And, after that exchange, and then later we're sitting on the Amtrak and we're leaving Penn Station to go back up to Albany. And I just had this livid feeling. I said, wait a minute. I said, here we have somebody who is serving the needs of the people and is having to scramble just to sustain himself. I said, where's the justice in that? And so probably around after I graduated college in '04, I had started playing around with developing principles of what we want African people to be in terms of financial freedom and economic independence. And over a period of years, those few principles ultimately became the book that you're holding in your hand today.
Oh, I love it. And that actually leads into my next question. What inspired you to write it? And could you briefly explain some of the key principles or concepts that are covered in this book for those that haven't yet read it?
It was really a case, I tell the story of Brother Steve Coakley and then others that I've seen in similar situations where you're serving the people, but now you're placing yourself at the mercy of the people's generosity or lack thereof, which is not a very pretty place to be. And I'm saying that from what I've witnessed of many of our elders and our ancestors in terms of how they were able to survive. And so I said, how do I make sure that future generations of African people who want to serve the people are not in a position to where they're basically starving artists, quote unquote, or poor righteous teachers, quote unquote. So I said, if I can develop kind of a blueprint for them to be able to sustain themselves while they're serving the people, then I think we can move things in a more positive direction. And that is where I said, as activists, we really need to be more entrepreneurial. We need to be in greater control of the intellectual property we produce, whether it's on, now digital download, other things that we create, writing books, etc. So it's almost like in serving the people, we have to take a more entrepreneurial minded approach to things. And I guess you would say that served as not only the spark and the inspiration, but the impetus to where we have to think about economics much differently, especially now in this post pandemic economy.
Yeah, very, very true. It's a whole nother mindset. Actually, I went to recently the African American History Museum in DC to see their Afrofuturism like installation. Um,
Mhm.
and the same thing that you're saying, and the term that you call yourself is exactly true. We have to go back to this era of when we had a particular mindset. Um, what role do you believe mindset and value systems play in achieving financial success? And also, how can individuals develop the right mindset and values to support their economic goals?
Mhm. Well, I'll take it, and I know I'm going to date myself when I say this. For those of you who are Gen X or maybe older, if you remember the 1987 movie Wall Street with Charlie Sheen and Michael Douglas, and if you remember the scene where Michael Douglas's character Gordon Gekko um, gave that infamous phrase, "Greed is good," and how greed clarifies, greed cuts to the heart of the matter. And in the 80s, you had that greed is good mentality, the whole corporate raiders, the SNL bank scandal of 87 with the Saudis and the Bush family. And, when you talk about ethics, values, morality, I would argue that a lot of that greed is good mentality in the 80s, we're still paying a price for it even today. And you could see the price that we've paid for it if we start at the beginning of the millennium or the new century in the early 2000s, when we saw Enron, WorldCom, Arthur Anderson, Health South, where people who were working for these companies for 25, 30, 35 years, building up stock market portfolios of $2 to $3 million, only to watch those portfolios lose nearly 95% of their value in the blink of an eye. Okay. Then we go into the uh, the real estate bubble burst of '07 and '08, the predatory lending, you know. So when we talk about having, good character, ethics, morality, values, it really plays a significant role because if you go down that path of evil and wickedness from an economic standpoint, the ripple effects, uh, sometimes they're hard to put into words, especially when you see the effects of it in the lives of everyday people.
Interesting. You say similar to me then. We see more of the mindset or the effects of the mindset as opposed to being able to just intersect it, right? Could you share any success stories or examples of individuals or communities that may have implemented your teachings and experienced positive transformations in their financial lives?
One success story that I've always talked about is a close friend of mine, which I call family, Brother Shakir. He's originally from Cape Town, South Africa. Now he's living in the Bronx, New York. When someone sends you a picture of your book and says that I keep it next to my scripture, and in his case, he keeps it next to his Quran, it's a deeply humbling
Oh,
feeling.
wow.
He actually got to see the manuscript develop before it became the final, um, the final piece. And one of the things,
Right.
and the reason why I say that his story is special, he's coming out of an apartheid situation. So coming from apartheid to, when Mandela was released in 1990 to the election that made him the first president, um, I knew his mentality towards money had to go through a very turbulent shift. He actually told me it took him 5 years to understand the concept of paying yourself first. Okay. Then on top of that, there was maybe another 2 to 3 years when I always talk about making money work for you because many of us have always grown up to work for money or we've been conditioned to work for money and never understanding that there's a science to money in terms of how to use it as a tool to make it work for you. For those who may have read The Richest Man in Babylon, I want to say it's the first story where it talks about every dollar that enters into your asset column should become your employee, or I think the term they use is should become your slave and work for you. And every dollar should accumulate more dollars to work for you that goes into your asset column. And those dollars should never leave the asset column, but they should always multiply.
Mm.
So that's probably the biggest success. Oh, and to continue with the success story to the point where now what he's done, not only for him and his wife, but he has a daughter, which will probably be two in a couple of weeks. So we've already set up a situation where she has various accounts. Okay. Now she has no concept of money at
Oh, wow.
age 1 to age 2, but there's an Acorn account, there's a money market account. So she's already ahead of the curve faster than he or
Mm.
I at the same age. Okay. So it's kind of like she will benefit from what we've had to unlearn and relearn. Okay. Because we decided to do it's called an 18-year process to where we want to make sure that she is financially free and economically independent to the point where she will never have to shop a resume to anyone, where she will only work for herself. So that's our experiment with his daughter. So she's going to be our guinea pig with this book.
That is absolutely superb. Uh, Man, and that's the thing that we all strive to do, or at least I hope we all strive to do for our children, for our legacies, is to make it not easier for them, but more practical, with investing in them in such an early age and making it so that as they come of understanding and they're able to communicate, that now we can tell them, hey, this is what we've done and this is how you manage it from here on out as you continue to grow in ages and stages. But often you talk about the community angel investing or a $20, you have a really good word for it.
Okay.
Can you
Yeah. One of the
elaborate
things
on those concepts?
what I talk about is being a $20 revolutionary. And this is where we get into one of the principles where I talk about using 5 to 25% of your income to patronize Black owned businesses, whether it's brick and mortar or e-commerce. So the $20 revolutionary thing is this: to make it simple, let's say every week you make a commitment to patronize a Black owned business with a $20 purchase every week. Okay. So over a 52-week period, that's about $1,040. All right. Now, I always like to take certain examples. So for those who attended the first Million Man March in 1995, so if I had put that book out in 1995, okay, and I told those 2 million brothers on the mall, I said, look, before you leave DC, everybody in the audience must make a $20 purchase from a Black owned business in the DC area. In one day, we would have put $40 million back into DC's Black economy. Okay. If we move to the Million Woman March, which was in Philly, the number was approximately 2.5 million African women who attended. Okay. We do a $20 revolutionary there. Philly's Black economy would have had $50 million put back into it in one day. Now, you multiply each one of those numbers over a 52-week period or even a 50-week period. Okay. You're talking about pouring billions back into our own hands where we didn't have to go to Congress. We didn't have to go to City Hall. We didn't have to sign petitions. All we had to do is to make a conscious decision to support and patronize Black owned businesses. So we can do things just with the resources we do have and pour it back into ourselves. So that's the whole thing about being a $20 revolutionary.
Sheesh. And that is my absolute favorite. There is since we talked about it, out here in Virginia, I just found another Black-owned bookstore. It is Paperback Inks out there on Warwick Boulevard. She
Mhm.
offers multiple different books that are 3 books for like $20. The kids' books, same kind of pricing, obviously a little bit lower. But
Okay.
just to implement what the brother is saying, it doesn't take much to just find a black business, a small owned business, and give them the $20 that you were going to blow on legit anything else. Doesn't matter what you were going to blow it on. This way,
Mhm.
like you said, we'll be able to start to pour back into our community and into ourselves. That
Right.
money feeds your neighbor's children's, you know what I'm saying? Helps them
Mhm.
go to summer camps and makes the whole community better.
Right.
Now, as an Afronomicist, Afrofuturist, what are some of the economic challenges? And I think you've touched on it a little bit, but what are we facing in the urban hip hop African world communities, and how can they work towards empowerment and sovereignty?
Okay. So when I call myself an Afronomicist and an Afrofuturist, and I go back to one of the things Brother Steve Copley always asks a question. He says, okay, where are our Black futurists? Okay. In other words, who among us will be our version of a Buckminster Fuller or an Alvin and Heidi Toffler? In other words, who among us is either forecasting a future and preparing for it, or who among us is creating a future for African people? Okay. So I think that's one of the challenges is sometimes we get so obsessed to find out what happened in 1865 or 1965. We have to ask the question, will there be Africans in the year 2065? And what type of future do we have to create for ourselves so that way we will be around in 2065, not just surviving, but thriving? Okay. And I'll give you an example. When Chairman Mao Zedong came to power in China in 1949 with the overthrow of, I want to say, Chiang Kai-shek, okay, there was a 100-year plan implemented to where by the end of that 100 years, which is approximately maybe 2049, China will be the big man on campus, even to the point where it will be the dominant economic force on the planet. And it listed how it will get there. Okay. One of the things that I say for African people is this: why don't we take that concept and on an individual level, let's say we break that down into 90-day windows, where every 90 days we focus on achieving or accomplishing a financial milestone. Okay. So if we go every 90 days over a 5-year period, we would have achieved 20 milestones. So I'm trying to break this down to where it's manageable and digestible for African people, to where they feel like that they're winning. They feel like that they're accomplishing something economically, financially. So in those 90-day windows, a milestone could be, okay, I am going to have a revocable or irrevocable trust set up over the next 90 days, or I am going to have a living will established over the next 90 days, or I will raise X amount of dollars in capital to launch this online business in 90 days. Okay. So if you get to start thinking in 90-day windows or 12-week windows, what can you accomplish financially, or what milestone you can achieve financially in these 90-day windows? So I'm just taking a page from what China is doing and, bringing it down into more of a manageable place where African people can feel like they're getting something done economically.
That's dope. We are proud supporters of eating an elephant. You know what I'm saying? One bite at a time.
Mm.
Now, a lot about the metaphysical. So, how do the metaphysical principles tie into your approach for personal and professional growth? And perhaps, how would you tell individuals to integrate these principles into their daily lives?
Well, and like I said, I go back to Malcolm's Ballad of the Bullet speech, because what I said in the book is this: economics affects all of us, regardless of what our school of thought is. We could be Black Christian nationalists, any sect of Islam, Hebrew Israelite, Moorish science, Kemetic, you name it. Economics affects all of us. So me creating this philosophy, you don't have to leave your church, your masjid, synagogue, tabernacle, or temple, or any political, fraternal, Masonic organization. It can actually be incorporated into what you already practice. It's kind of like what Malcolm said about Billy Graham. Billy Graham, when he goes, he doesn't go to set up a church. He just goes in preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, where he says, look, wherever you find that gospel preached, go there and partake in it. So this helps the churches. The churches don't fight him because he's not trying to compete with them. He's actually helping them, build their congregation, if you will, by saying, wherever you find the gospel of Jesus Christ practice, go there. So any organization that you feel is practicing and preaching this particular gospel economically, you support that. Whether it's the Nation of Islam, whether it's the UNIA, any organization that teaches Black economic empowerment and Black economic sovereignty, you go there and you support and you partake in it.
Yo, it is just that simple. Absolutely simple. You $20, go find your local bookstore, your local mom and pop, whether it's food. There's so many things that we have to do on a regular basis. Eat, clean, personal hygiene, all that. There's an easy way to locate
Right.
these individuals, whether it be like the Brother Zumbi's book on Amazon, my book on Amazon. Don't forget, don't make it hard, people. So got another question. Hold on. What advice would you give to someone who wants to on this journey of personal and financial empowerment, but maybe facing some challenges or obstacles along the way?
Okay. Well, in this particular case, there's no like cookie cutter approach because everybody has a unique situation. The one thing that I would suggest is start acquiring resources. Okay, whether you have to take a part-time job, full-time job, whether you got to work multiple jobs, or something to where you can begin to start acquiring resources and storing resources, not saving but storing resources. Okay. Leverage your local library to begin to teach yourself uh, not only the science of money but the science of economics, period. Okay, because I think that needs to help. And I think we said this in a previous show. It doesn't take much for you to say, I'm going to learn 5 new financial or economic terms a day. And I think I gave the website Investopedia, where it's got a complete uh, dictionary of financial terms. It's investopedia.com, and it goes from A to Z. It'll teach you terms, whether it's amortization, creative destruction, which is a term I use to describe how technology is turning over at such a fast rate. Understanding what is credit, what is debit, what is debt, what is equity. So just learning the language of money and economics will begin to take you far. And like I said, it doesn't cost much. Okay. Like I said, leverage your local public library. Okay. That's what as taxpayers, that's what we have. So I would just kind of start there, acquiring resources, whether it's through employment or self-employment, and leveraging your public library to begin to find books, attend workshops to where you can begin to learn the language of money and economics and business and finance. And also, as you're acquiring resources, I also recommend build your own library. Okay. uh, Buy a book each week. Whether it's a book on, I just got something in the mail this week from Amazon. I had ordered the first of a 3-volume series on guerrilla marketing. Okay, so you should always be in the process of learning and acquiring new information. Okay, so that I would just start there. Oh, she's okay. She's muted.
Yeah, I always catch it after the fact. If I don't catch it live, I catch it after the fact. and life changing. And we love those three things. But lastly, what are your future goals and aspirations in terms of spreading your message of empowerment and helping others to achieve their economic destinies?
Well, I'm already working on the expanded edition of the book as we speak. One of the other things that I'm working on is developing a journal slash workbook that can accompany the book itself. Um, Leveraging opportunities for podcasting like this, and really, nothing, I guess you would say, concrete. It's just putting one foot in front of the other, I guess you would say. Um, it's taken me this long just to kind of put it in a book form. Now it's like, okay, from this philosophy, now how do I go from philosophy to program, from program to plan, and from plan to process? Um, and like I said, that's a journey in itself. So you would like to go in a straight line, but believe it or not, in nature, straight lines don't exist.
Yeah, that's right. Life is ebb and flow. So, Brother Zumbi, it's been a pleasure having you up here on the Empowerment Bookstore. We always hear so much your book on other shows, but we never really get to delve into what it is you do, what it is you write. Before we sign off, can you tell the people where we can find you?
Where you can find me, I do have a Facebook group called Gospel of Afronomics Theology, or GOAT. I try to put content in there that's relevant to the economic issues that African people face. Um, I'm still trying to bring myself into the 21st century, so I'm still working on getting a website up. I haven't done any of the other stuff that the youth are into with Instagram and other things, but we're getting there. And you can find my book on Amazon. Um, like I said, I'm working on the expanded edition as we speak. There's maybe about 5 new chapters that I'll add. One of them will deal with cryptocurrency. I'm still a novice. Oops. Okay, what was that? Okay, I think you're frozen. Okay. Uh,
Oh man, you gotta love technology. It's great until it's not. Hey tribe, thank you for joining us on this empowering episode of the Empowerment Bookstore featuring Brother Minister Zumbi. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights on personal empowerment, financial responsibility, and transformation. Brother Minister's wisdom and expertise have shed light on the importance of equipping ourselves with the right tools, value systems, and mindset to solve financial problems and achieve our fullest potential. Through his Afronomicist and Afrofuturistic perspectives, he emphasizes the empowerment and sovereignty of urban hip hop and African world communities. Remember, true transformation starts from within. As Brother Minister shared, it is essential to embrace a growth mindset, take charge of our financial well being, and empower ourselves to fulfill our economic destinies. We encourage you to connect with the brother for further guidance, workshops, and seminars as you continue your journey towards personal financial empowerment. Remember, stay tuned for more episodes on the Empowerment Bookstore where we bring you thought leaders, authors, and experts who are passionate about helping you unlock your true potential. Remember, the power to transform your life is within you. We can't wait to see you again. Check you soon. Peace.